Hello and welcome to Jockeys, the podcast. I'm Adam McNamara, and this is the racing podcast where we strip away the guarded versions of jockeys that you see every day on TV, giving them the platform to tell us what they really think. We talk about their regrets and aspirations, and we have a couple of laughs along the way as well.
On the latest episode, Josephine Gordon.
Whereas I think when I go off competing my horse at the weekend, it's for myself, and basically if I mess up, I'm the only one to blame.
You've got multiple dogs.
I've got two dogs. I've got two handbag dogs, Chihuahua dogs. Tiny,
Two Chihuahuas.
Tiny and tricksy, yeah. I moved to Stan Moore's and he literally threw everything at me. Trainers, owners, they're under the same pressure as us. We do it because we love it. We love horses. Jockeys, we are physically built to be tough. You fall off a horse, you dust yourself off, you get back up. If I've had a tough day, it's quite nice to come home and the dogs are there and they're pleased to see you. It's quite comforting.
Josie, welcome to Jockeys, the podcast. I'm really glad to have you on. I want to start like I normally do with outsider racing. So for someone who doesn't know much about Josephine Gordon, what are you doing on a day off? What kind of hobbies, interests do you have outside of the saddle?
I always get asked this question actually of hobbies. I don't really have a hobby. I have my own horse and everybody thinks that's crazy because I work with horses myself. He's an ex-racehorse, shorts on. So he's probably like, say if it's a Sunday and we've got no racing, I'll go off jumping with him, but he gets exercised every day. So yeah, that's probably the only hobby I've got. I've got two dogs. I like walking the dogs. I like eating. But yeah, I wouldn't say I have any other sports.
But let's talk about your ex-racer then. How did that come about? Was it one that you'd ridden on the racetrack and then decided you wanted to take it home, or how does that work?
I think for a jockey, you ride so many different horses. You sit on so many different horses every day and even throughout the year. You don't really get attached to horses. And this was a horse that was at Phil McEntee's and I was riding him every day. It would have been a little bit of an awkward ride, nothing horrific. And I think he just got sour to racing. And I said to the owners, can I school him? Jump him, and he really enjoyed it. And I don't know, I just got attached, which, you know, I've been racing since I was 16, and I kind of, yeah, the deal was all along that I'd have him, which was quite nice. But I won one race on him. I think in total he did win 2 races, but I think, politely put, he was probably disappointing as a racehorse. I think when you're racing, you're doing it for other people, there's pressures on. Whereas I think when I go off competing my horse at the weekend, it's for myself, and basically if I mess up, I'm the only one to blame. During the week, obviously I'm racing most days, so I can't really get away to go competing. But say on Sundays when there's no racing off, I'll go show jumping, cross country with him. I don't want to big him up, but he's pretty good. He's pretty good. Yeah, he's still only a baby himself. So obviously I done the show jumping cross country when I was a kid. I haven't done it since I was 16. So it's a different style of riding again as well. So we're probably learning together.
Let's talk about the dogs as well, because you mentioned dogs. Have you got multiple dogs?
I've got two dogs. I've got two handbag dogs, Chihuahua dogs.
Two Chihuahuas.
Tiny and tricksy, yeah.
And how much like looking after do they take? Do you spend a lot of time having to mind them, or can you kind of take them with you to the races and stuff? Or
they are really easy, like so easy. I can literally do anything with them. When it was just the one dog, Tiny, I used to take her everywhere and she'd go in the weighing room. Whereas the Trixie, the little one, she's a little bit naughty, so I probably wouldn't trust her not to take a dump on the floor. So she doesn't go racing. I think at the same time, like Shorty, the dogs are probably a switch off as well. If I've had a tough day, it's quite nice to come home and the dogs are there and they're pleased to see you. It's quite comforting.
let's talk a little bit about racing then, because you've had a very interesting career, I think it'd be fair to say. Because I remember my first year in the UK, you were champion apprentice, and you kind of ran away with it a bit that year, and um it seems like you had like a baptism of fire as such, because the year before you'd had a couple of winners, but that year you just took it to a whole nother level, and you really had a lot of momentum, and you're up against like Tom Marquand, who was champion apprentice the previous year and gunning for the title again. So I think it'd be fair to say you, at the start of the year, you'd have been relatively big price to be champion apprentice. So how did it feel maybe early in that season when you were starting to gather a bit of momentum and the prospect of being a champion apprentice started getting a little bit more and more realistic? How did that feel for someone who'd had relatively quiet seasons the years previously?
Yeah, it was probably, I had to pinch myself. I'd actually not ridden a winner for I'd ridden my first winner on my ninth ride, and I hadn't ridden a winner for 2 years, I think, 2.5 years. And I remember saying, like, the next 6 months I'm gone, I've got to go abroad, I've got to do something different, give up the idea of race riding, because obviously something's not right, I'm doing something wrong on the track. So yeah, I was probably on my last 6 months of calling quits of trying to be a jockey. And I moved to Stan Moore's, and he literally threw everything at me. Yeah, literally all of his runners. I knew how to ride, but it was just getting the chances. And I think I owe a lot to Stan, because it then opened the doors, and a lot of other trainers started using me. The feeling itself, I think the first 2 years of when I started riding probably was always in the back of my head of like, I'm doing well, but never let it get to me. Like, you've got to keep your feet on the ground. But I just remember like being like, oh, I've got 2 rides today. Oh, I've got 3 today. And then boom, I remember one day when we had the double meetings, I had 12 rides. I was absolutely exhausted. But yeah, I was so grateful for those chances. It was a good few years.
How did you manage it, like mentally, going from, like you said, 2 or 3 rides to 12 in a day? Do you have to just kind of almost let that over your head and just focus on each ride at a time, or did it feel overwhelming at any point?
I think it's actually easier when you're having more rides in a day. Obviously, you've got your list of rides. I always write notes on. I've got notes from like years and years ago on horses that I've ridden. They're probably like 20 now, but yeah. I think it's easier when you have more rides, because by the time you've ridden your 5th ride, you've kind of gotten over the first ride if you've given it a bad ride, or if it's a favourite and it's got beat. Whereas if you only have 1 or 2 rides a day and it goes wrong, that's your only chance, and you're dwelling on it then for the rest of the day, potentially, maybe even going into the next day. But yeah, having more rides, although that side of it is probably easier, it's it is draining. Like, it's tiring on your body and your mind.
I want to ask you as well, because it's something I struggled with massively when I was riding, is kind of dealing with owners and trainers and trying to build relationships with them. So how were you quite natural at that, or was it again in that season where things kicked off for you? Is that something you had to pick up and learn as you went along, like how to speak to people in the parade ring, how to speak to trainers, and how to give the right kind of feedback and present yourself correctly?
I think, to be honest, it was probably a thing where I had lots of rides for Stan and lots of rides for Joe Hughes without winners. I probably learned along the way. So I always say I feel like I learned the right way. So yeah, I think that side of things, speaking to owners and trainers, I think I probably picked up on quite quickly. Like, don't get me wrong, you can say you can get it wrong on a horse and say like, I got the trick wrong, sorry. Trainers, owners, they're under the same pressure as us. We do it because we love it. We love horses. It's enjoyable, but at the same time, it's stress. You want the horse to do well, and luckily enough for me as a jockey, when it's done, I can kind of, although I can dwell on it, I can go home and that's it done. Whereas, the owners and trainers are still going to be talking about it for the rest of the day, going into the next day.
And then talk to me about when you get to the end of that first season and you get that champion apprentice title. Did that feel surreal, or did it feel like, had you got to a point maybe where you thought, this kind of feels normal now, or did it still feel like this is quite unusual?
The idea of being champion apprentice, probably still to this day, I'd have to pinch myself, and especially going up against the likes of Tom Marquand as well, who's, he's one of the best around now. It just felt to me that it happened so quickly.
I want to talk about just that moment on Champions Day as well, because I never got to experience it. I finished third, but that moment when you walk out and you've got the sort of guard of honor of really esteemed jockeys, senior jockeys, giving you a guard of honor to go and pick up your trophy. How did that feel? What's that moment like?
Massive. It's something that I probably haven't experienced since. No, it was a great feeling, when I've first wanted to be a jockey. Frankie Dettori's, Ryan Moore, Hayley Turner's, they were the people that I was looking up to, and the fact that they were saying well done to me and clapping me, it was it was probably one of the best feelings ever.
Following that, your trajectory rose again, and you had the job with Hugo Palmer, and the next year you rode over 100 winners, if I'm not wrong, and only the second female jockey at the time to ever ride over 100 winners. Did that feel surreal, or did it feel like a natural progression? Was there more pressure, or was there less pressure because things kept going well?
I think it's easy when you're riding winners. It's a lot easier. Obviously, you've got to keep the pressure up to stay at that high level. The Hugo Palmer job, obviously Stan was absolutely brilliant to me and fantastic, and it was one of them. It was kind of, I was coming up to Newmarket once or twice a week to ride out for Hugo, and I was like, I've got to make the move. This is my chance to be riding listed horses and group horses. So it was something that I didn't take lightly, but I have to do it. For the first year and a half, it was brilliant. It was fantastic, and I was given a lot of chances. Hugo's horses were flying; they were firing. We had it was a good team.
You said you didn't take the decision lightly. I've always assumed that when any jockey takes a kind of a leap of faith, there must be some level of fear in there. When you move from sort of your comfortable position with the trainers and owners that you've been riding for, that you've had success with, to try and take that leap up to the next level, was there a lot of doubts in your mind? Was there fear, and was there like a sense of this could go really wrong?
I spoke to Stan Moore about it and a few other people about it, and a lot of people said it's something that you've got to do. I hated Newmarket. I hated it for the first year. I was not the job, loved it, but Newmarket itself, I wasn't a fan of it. But yeah, I think taking a job as well like that is, you are putting all your eggs into one basket, and you are then having to pick Hugo Palmer's horses over Stan Moore, who's supported you the last 2, 3, 4 years. So yeah, it's a risk. Of course, it's a risk, and it's a risk that paid off for a year and a half.
You said you hated Newmarket for the first while. What was it about Newmarket that you didn't like? Because obviously it's quite different from Lambourne. They're similar in the sense that they're both training centres, but I've been in Lambourne a long time now, and I know how Lambourne works. And I've only really visited Newmarket. I've never actually ridden out there, but it does seem like it's just a much bigger scale. But what was it specifically about Newmarket that you struggled with in the beginning?
I didn't have any friends up here. And to be fair, in Lambourne, my family were only 2 hours away. But I think I'd been in Lambourne maybe 5 years, and I just didn't feel at home. I was just, wasn't at home. I didn't feel comfortable. I always said that I'd move back to Lambourne. But since then I've been back to Lambourne. I don't like Lambourne, so.
I feel like in Lambourne and Newmarket and Malton and any of those sort of training centres, you can get into quite a bubble. And I think specifically for jockeys, there's no real hiding places. Like, do you feel like you can't, in the likes of Lambourne, Newmarket, you can't go out to the pub and have a nice night without everyone saying Josephine Gordon was out last night, she got a bit drunk? Does that feel difficult to not have that freedom to be able to go out and have a night out with your friends, or go anywhere without people spotting you and maybe creating rumours and stories?
Oh yeah, 100%. I wouldn't be massive about going into Newmarket anyway. I'm really lucky. I live outside Newmarket, and my local is a 30-second walk. So if I want to have a drink, I just walk there. But yeah, that's the thing is, I think it's difficult in racing. A lot of people don't like to see other people doing well, and that's probably really harsh of me to say. And I think rumours can get created, and it can go back to the boss or owners, and yeah, that's when potentially you can be getting into trouble. So yeah, I'd keep myself to myself. I quite like just being quite quiet, chilling, going down to the pub for a couple here and there.
Have you ever heard a rumor about yourself that you knew obviously wasn't true?
Loads, yeah, loads, a lot, and especially when I was doing well. Wouldn't hear anything about myself now. But I think probably when I was younger it would get to me, and now as I've got older I've realised there's nothing you can do, so I just kind of laugh about it and shake it off. But definitely when I was younger I probably wouldn't have really known how to deal with it, and I would have tried to argue out of it, and the more you kind of try and prove that you're right, the more it just backfires on you.
Yeah, it makes you look extra guilty when you're trying to argue your way out of something. Yeah.
Yep, exactly.
You're riding winners for Juddmonte, you're riding winners for big trainers, and everything looks like it's gone really, really well, and that trajectory is just going to continue. When did it feel like for you that trajectory stopped or started going downwards? From your perspective, what happened? Can you tell us why and when it felt like it kind of plateaued somewhere?
There's probably two sides to every story, as we know. I had a accident up at Ayr, and I ended up breaking my hand, and I was off maybe 3 weeks probably out with this hand injury, and obviously finally came back to riding out and getting back to it, and I just really struggled to kind of get going after that. And I felt like the horses that Hugo was giving me weren't particularly with a chance, and the rides were just slowing down. And then I realised, I'm getting jocked off horses I've won off here before. If I went back, I'd probably look and be like, yeah, I probably was riding bad. I was probably just knackered, exhausted. But I was a kid, and you've got to power on, you've got to keep going when you're doing well. But I wish at some point someone would have pulled me in and said something like, or Hugo said something to me, but nothing was ever said. It was just, I knew probably on the quiet I was getting the sack. So before he could say anything, obviously I hadn't ridden for him for a week, and everybody else was, I bumped into David Milnes up at the Albert Hatchery, and maybe I shouldn't have said anything, but David had asked, well, what's going on, and I just said, I'm just going to start riding for other people. And I actually remember ringing Hugo and saying there is going to be basically something out in the Racing Post, but I think something's got to change, because I know you don't want to use me. It's not, whatever's gone wrong, it's not working. And he was fine with it. There was no falling out, there was no disagreement, and I have ridden for him since. But yeah, I wouldn't have a bad word to say against him. It was just, but I don't know, after my hand injury, I just wasn't firing.
I think when you don't have that communication, obviously your mind starts racing. Doesn't that just become a lot more difficult? And did you feel frustrated, or was there anger, resentment at the time?
I was frustrated, yeah, of course, for everything. I think he was probably in the same boat as me. I probably should have gone to Hugo and said, what's going on? I never did. Or he should have come to me and said it. But look, it hasn't ended badly, and it was a brilliant few years. But at the end of the day, it's the trainer's name on the door, and if their horses are running bad, there's only one person to blame, and it's the jockey. And obviously the horses that I'd ridden at that time hadn't been firing, hadn't been running very well, and things were just not happening. I literally just remember one day I was sat in the stalls and I was that fried, and I was like, please just miss the break or anything, so there's an excuse for you why you've run bad. And that's when that's not good. Like, that you can't be wishing that a horse is going to break bad because it's going to run bad. I wish back then someone would have spoken to me and said something needs to change, whether I even had 2 weeks off as a break or I just needed a little bit of help. I think I'm in a really good place now, and although it's difficult, I'd say I'm a lot happier now. When I did leave Hugo's, I had nobody because I'd put everything into Hugo. I'd obviously let down a lot of trainers because it was like, I can't ride yours. I'm going to ride this of Hugo's. So then when that job's gone, you're then left with no other job. It's the same as majority of the jockeys out there when something like that happens to them.
How did you manage to kind of pull yourself out of that mentality and just keep going?
I think it's a confidence thing. So Sean Keatley, he moved to Newmarket, and I'd known Sean since I was a kid, and I was going in there and riding his out every day. And he did speak to me about it. He said, you're shot to bits. Like, you need to get confidence. You need to find your confidence. And the more I was riding for him, instead of him telling me off, he was helping me. I'd probably say 6 months easily. I probably rode terrible for a good 6 months. A good 6 months. It wasn't great. But Sean, he pushed me, and I think it was a confidence thing. God bless Sean. He was brilliant for me.
Do you feel like you've got a better support network around you now and people that you can talk to that can help you throughout the rest of your career effectively?
I think there probably is people out there. Personally, probably think the best people to talk to are jockeys, because you know yourself, Adam, when you're in it, you're all feeling the same, and you can't really talk to someone that's out of it. They can't really understand what you're going through, and they're kind of looking at you with four heads. It's just horses running around a field. But it's not. It's your career. It's winners. Do us jockeys talk to each other? Probably not, no. Something probably should change to help jockeys in that situation. But I think we're very old school, and we stick to what we know. We don't like change.
There's a kind of like a cultural issue in the weighing room, I think, with jockeys. I'd like to think it's changed from when I started riding a little bit, but definitely the rate of change is slower than it should be. How do we get jockeys to a point where, because you've got that weird dynamic where you're all competitors, but you also share the weighing room. You've got friends within that weighing room and people that you should be able to speak to. How do you think we get to the point where jockeys can support each other a little bit more and help each other out with those difficult situations?
I'll fire the question back to you. How did you get out of it? How did you deal with it at the time?
I'd have been the same as you. I probably didn't speak to enough jockeys, really. I remember when I was struggling, probably about a year before I retired, I did speak to Oisin Murphy, and to be fair, he took my call, and I spoke to him for about an hour about how I might try and change things. And then ultimately, I hadn't fully accepted I needed to move on, and I kind of half-heartedly tried for another year, but it just wasn't for me in the end. But I think similar to you, there are points in my career where I look back on and go, I wish I'd spoken to more people, and I wish I'd maybe made more of an effort at certain points. I sort of feel like maybe we need like a big event, maybe a big negative event where jockeys actually band together. And I think once they do that once and realize that together you kind of have a lot more power than you realize, I feel like then maybe everything will click a little bit in the weighing room and you realize that you're competitive, but you're not at odds with each other all the time, I think, in theory.
Jockeys, we are physically built to be tough. You fall off a horse, you dust yourself off, you get back up. And I think that's the same probably when you have, when you're having a bad time of it and you haven't got a clear head, you have to just chuck it to one side and move on. It's wrong. But I think that's I can't see it changing. Not anytime soon, anyway.
What do you think you do well in terms of race riding perspective? What is it that you're good at? Is there a certain tactic? Like, is it front running? Is it dropping one in? Is it your hands? Is it how you get horses run for you? What is it that Josephine Gordon does well?
I think if I had the choice, I'd love to front run on everything. I love front running. I think where I grew up as well, doing dressage and show jumping, for me, it's all about keeping the horses on the right lead, which a lot of jockeys actually wouldn't know about leads and changing legs and everything. John Reed was really good with me when I was younger. I was terrible with my left hand. So like he'd always make me use my left hand and switch my stick. He said, if you can get a horse to change a lead in the drive, it nicks half a length. So I was always taught basically to switch your stick as much as you can so that your horse is changing leads and it just nicks. It's basically the difference of being beaten a neck and a nose.
That's why I retired at 25. I never thought about things like switching leads and nicking that extra bit. Finally then, move away from racing. I've got one more non-racing-y question to ask you. I am very nosy and interested in jockeys' love lives. So can you tell us how's your love life going?
Yeah, it's going good.
And that's it. We don't get any more details.
I've got a love life. It's obviously it's difficult. It's been difficult having someone understand being a jockey. You can't put your partner first, but yeah, I've got a love life and it's going good.
Is that something that you have found really difficult to manage? Is a love life in between your sort of work-life balance and prioritizing?
I've dated people in racing and out of racing. Out of racing, it's probably quite difficult for them to understand that racing comes first. You've got to obviously manage your weight, and if you've got light, you're lightweight, you're not going to be going out for dinner. But yeah, I've always made sure that they understand that racing is always first before them. So, some relationships haven't lasted as long, but yeah, at the moment we're in a good place.
It's been an absolute pleasure having you on. I've had a lot of fun talking to you, and I'm convinced that your trajectory is going to go back up again. So I'm keeping faith in you. So yeah, best of luck for the rest of the season, and thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Ad.
Watch live racing now on racingtv.com.